Welcome to a very special table side of Mormon book reviews. The other day I did some missionaries of the Righteous Branch and had a great time with them at Chili's. And now I'm at the IHOP in Bradenton, Florida with my good friend, Brian Stutzman in the house. How you doing tonight, sir?
It's good to be back with you, Steve. We love being in Florida.
Yes, I know. It's great whenever I'm able to see people here in Florida. And so I'm going to start doing this irregular series where I go out to dinner with people. And in this case, Brian was nice enough to buy my dinner. Thank you very much, sir. And just have a chat and kind of let you in my world. Like, this is the world I live in. I sit at booths and I talk with very interesting people. And one of the most interesting people I've had on my program is Brian, who has really done some great research, some great work. And this summer we are going to, I would actually hope to maybe even this summer, get out to Nauvoo, Illinois to go visit this place in this building that you've put a museum in. And I'm going to focus on your cool t-shirt here. There we go. The Martyrdom Stories Museum in Nauvoo, Illinois. Brian, why don't you tell us a little bit about this museum you have?
Well, we joke with people. We were sitting around one day and said, we don't think there's enough historic sites in Nauvoo, Illinois. We should spend a whole bunch of money, buy a building, renovate it, and create our own, only to find out that it's called the museum capital of the world. There are more museums in Nauvoo per capita than any other. And the Chamber of Commerce promoter, Rebecca, is trying to get that official designation for Nauvoo, she was telling me. I don't know if that number is actually completely true, but there are a lot of museums. But a year and a half ago, we bought a building a block from the temple, and mostly self-funded. I think a couple people gave me $1,000 or whatever.
Okay.
Some friends that kind of supported this, but we put our own money in. We remodeled this building, and come to find out, the building that we have was built in 1913, and the building right next door was built about the same time. The previous buildings before that were built in the Mormon period. The building right to the wall that used to be there was home to the Nauvoo Expositor. So right through the wall was the Nauvoo Expositor. It's been a lot of fun. We had a very soft opening last August for just a few days. Had some people in, made some changes, got some feedback. We opened officially about 2 weeks ago, and we have had over roughly 300 people.
Wow, 300 people in 1 week?
Yeah, in about 8 days. I think on our 8th day we hit 300, roughly 250, 300. And we'll be there open through the end of August, through the end of pageant, which is August 2nd.
Okay.
Now, I know you've got a very diverse audience, right? I've been on your show before, in person mostly. This will probably appeal to, who goes to Nauvoo? Mostly your faithful members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and sometimes people, interested in history or one of the other branches. We're open and welcome to
That's
all.
Great.
Mm-hmm. And what we do is, when you were out there, you went to Carthage, right? Mm-hmm. In the summertime, there are normally 8 to 10 buses at Carthage. Hundreds of people, lots of people in cars. Do they have an hour or two to talk with each person and tell them all about the lead up and even the trial afterwards? No, they got people waiting. In fact, we've talked to some of the missionaries. They're officially supposed to close Carthage at like 5. They skip their dinner or they delay it, and they're there at 7 o'clock, way 2 hours after the jail's supposed to close, just because they're trying to be kind to people who have traveled there. They're under a time crunch. They're not hiding anything. They just don't have 2 or 3 hours to talk to each and every person. So we pick up the slack a little bit. We wanted to focus, me and my wife, when I say we, wanted to focus on the selling of the area, what happened at Carthage, why the mobs, why people from Warsaw and Carthage, Missouri, why they were all up in arms about what was happening in Nauvoo. Why would they storm Carthage jail and kill Joseph Smith? We talk about the waitress Eliza Graham that she was 18 years old. She was working at the Warsaw House. It was a restaurant, and the mob came back and started bragging about who had killed Joseph Smith. Jacob Davis, Mark Alders was with the group. William Grover and Jacob Davis argued all night whose gun it was that killed Joseph Smith, who shot him. And then we talked about the trial afterwards. So most members of the church do not realize that there was a trial. Joseph had 2 guns up in the bedroom. Of course, he was being held in what was supposed to be a safe place, waiting for a hearing. He was just in the bedroom, right? As the mob came up and shot and killed Hiram, Joseph pulled out his gun. It was said he shot 6 times. Okay, 3 were misfired. It was said 3 bullets went off as he shot at the mob coming up the stairs at him. That fall, a grand jury indicted 9 people for the crime. The next year, May 1845, in Carthage, there was a trial. 5 people stood trial. 4 people disappeared. It was said, multiple accounts, that 3 people had wounds from that stairway, physical wounds, and if they would have showed up at the trial, they would have been indicted because they had physical evidence. They would have been convicted, rather. They had physical evidence that they were there in the stairs of Carthage. So that's kind of an overview.
Yeah.
We're no charge, by the way.
Yeah, so it's no charge, and
I'm self-funding it.
And this is this the first time you've ever operated a museum, Brian?
Yeah. And somebody says, well, what makes him qualified to well, I've invested my own personal money, and I open it, and somebody else wants to open a museum of their own and invest their own money and tell something different and have different artifacts and different stories. Welcome.
Yeah.
I'll show you some buildings in Nauvoo that are available. Come out and buy them. I'm not really in the market for criticism. If somebody wants to do something different, I'll support you. I might even donate if you want to come out and tell a different story of the martyrdom. But we're well researched. I've had some people help me on some of the stories. My background is originally 12 years ago. I started on writing the history of Warsaw. And Warsaw is that town 18 miles south of Nauvoo. And it's where the mob came from. And it's also where this 18-year-old waitress, by the way, she served the mob that night. Her name's Eliza Graham. She testified at the trial the next year. She was a star witness for the prosecution. She told what happened that night. It's an amazing story. In fact, after I wrote, I think it was in 2020, I wrote her story for LDS Living. Mm-hmm. I hooked up, I met her 4th grade granddaughter, Nancy Potter, and Logan Ballard and Nancy. She came up. She has some married daughter near our house where we live in Idaho. Me and my wife met with her, and Nancy later commissioned a painting of her 4th great grandmother, Eliza Graham, who testified against the mob, and we have a print of that painting in our museum.
Oh, wow.
With her story.
Yeah, I think
it's an amazing story.
I think the work that you've done is really important to tell her story, and I'm really glad that we're able to get that story out there. And I just wanted to ask you, is this like, are you planning on doing this museum for a long period of time? I mean, what does the future look like? I mean, you expect to be doing this 5-10 years from now, or do you think this is just for a season? What do you envision?
No, multiple years.
Okay.
And the feedback's good, and with the amount of people we've had in, what's really amazing is the tourist season hasn't really even started. In June and July, the neighbors have told me that run businesses. We're kind of in the business districts. In fact, yesterday I was talking with a neighbor that runs this dress shop, and she told me, she says this isn't the tourist season hasn't even started, and there are times in June and July where there's so many people, not only on the sidewalks but in the street, that the police come by slowly over a loud microphone on their car, say, please get off the street, it's unsafe. It's so crowded, it's like a street fair at times.
Wow. Oh, that's great. I would love to get out there some summer. I would love to maybe get out there this summer. I don't know. I'm really excited about this new venture that you're on. And just to know, people, it's free of charge. I'm going to have a link to the website in the description of this video. I want to wrap things up here, Brian, but was there any final words you wanted to say?
No, we just welcome anybody who wants to come and learn. I would say a good percentage of people come through and they the typical person comes through. We have a lot of stories. 20 to 40 minutes. We've had people read everything, some twice, an hour and a half there. But almost everybody comes through and says, gosh, I really didn't know this. For instance, we tell the story of Dan Jones, who received the last prophecy to a person by Joseph Smith. We tell the Buena Vista prophecy, which he gave at the Hamilton House in Carthage a couple days before his murder or martyrdom. People walk out and say, these are phenomenal stories. I may have heard some of it I haven't heard before, haven't read. Thank you for doing this. There's something that basically for everybody. We end, and maybe this is how I'll end. Some members of the church and others are familiar with, once Joseph died, the widespread sentimentism in the press was, Joseph Smith, the Mormon prophet's dead, thus ends Mormonism. There's also a couple accounts, I think Quincy did an account that we're probably more familiar with, but in July 20th of 1844, a New York newspaper editor, and we have this in our museum, this newspaper, and it says that Joseph Smith has carved out a page in the history of his country. 2015, Smithsonian Magazine comes out with a list of influential Americans, and number one for religion is Joseph Smith, and they give him a page and a half in the history of his country. Absolutely. And how many thousands, if not tens of thousands, of local preachers and things from not only the 1800s and 1900s have sprung up, and some very popular televangelists and stuff. Joseph Smith, the number one religious figure in the history of America, according to Smithsonian Magazine.
Well, that's a pretty good source there, and that is a very true comment. I think Joseph Smith is truly a remarkable man, and I think it's really important for people to go check out the museum to learn more about the martyrdom, maybe get to know the community better. Nauvoo is an awesome community. I've been there, and I love it, and we just want to honor the community of Christ, who for many years were entrusted as the stewards of these facilities, and now they're in the hands of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Again, I'm going to have a link to the website in the description, and if you're looking to do something this summer, you got a place to stop at, especially if you're going to Nauvoo already anyhow. And remember, the most important thing is this: all the voices of the restoration will be heard here on Mormon Book Reviews.